Hello and welcome to Women in Mobility by Mobility Outlook. Today we have with us Ms. Jyotsna Sharma, who is currently the CFO and Head of IT at Bridgestone India. With over 27 years of experience in different industries, she has consciously tried to acquire and nurture leadership qualities that define who she is today. Raised in a modest and orthodox business family of 6 daughters, principles such as hard work, humility, and honesty were a natural part of growing up for Jyotsna. Jyotsna is motivated and creative professional, worked with industry leaders like Kinetic Honda, SKF Bearings, NRB Bearings, and Sandvik Asia. She has led the CIA Finance Panel for Pune as convener in 2016 and convener in 2017. Jyotsna received several accolades during her career, and most of significant awards are India's Best Woman CFO in 2012 and Leading Lady Award Business in Excellence. Jyotsna, welcome to Women in Mobility, which is an initiative by Mobility Outlook to engage with women leaders across mobility space, to understand their perspectives on leadership and take inspiration from their corporate journey. Welcome.
Thank you, Murli. Thank you very much for this introduction. And I would just like to add one small bit to my introduction. I am a vivid person fond of rallying motorsports. So I have been participating in national rallies like Great the Himalayas, Desert Storm, Spice, and so forth. So that comes very naturally to me to rally across various situations around.
That's interesting. Okay, let me ask you what is the key motivating factor for your leadership journey?
Yeah. To just put in a simplified way, there are two key critical aspects which I say have led me to where I am today. One is a strong value system, and I'll get back to it in a bit. And second is an identity crisis. When it comes to a strong value system, I think I certainly owe it to my parents, my upbringing, which lay the foundation for our lives. And as you have already said it, a disciplined approach towards life, aptitude to do a lot of hard work, be modest, be bold, be truthful, and be passionate, detailed, alert. These were the basic values which were laid in our foundational upbringing years. So leadership was all around growing, listening to stories of very successful people from my father at coffee table or dinner table discussions. And in our topics, we were at a very early stage introduced with personalities like Dr. Banu Koyaji or the achievements of Indira Gandhi, Lady Prime Minister, or Princess Diana. And the very fact that we were 6 sisters at home, my father had a bigger task to show us the right role models for our future. So that became a strong foundation to build up our future upon. The second thing I mentioned was identity crisis. So as each one of us grow, and particularly women, we are either identified as daughter of so-and-so or wife and so-and-so, or a wife of so-and-so. And I think at a very, very early stage, I had felt the need to create my identity as Jyotsna, beyond a Chodia or a Sharma where I belong to. So I think these two foundational aspects certainly play a very pivot role to my motivation to stand where I am, beyond the designation as a leader.
So that would have been the key driver for the entire career journey that you have experienced.
Yes, here's the foundational one. Then you keep on adding more and more values to your leadership style, journey, people whom you start shadowing, the aspirations that you lay on your road to your success. So there would be more beyond, but they all come together eventually.
So that means you were keep on building up your strengths during the journey.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because I believe leadership is not something which happens all of a sudden.
Correct.
Path that one walks, mends on the way, adds on the way, drops on the way. So it's
okay.
Then,
yeah. Are there situations where decisions taken by you impacted the organization or someone in someone's life or career?
Sure. Of course, I mean, in my almost 30 years span of career, um, many of my decisions have impacted organizations and individuals. And particularly when you work as a senior professional, in a senior position, which is a much more decision-making position, you are bound to take those risks which would impact people or organizations. And to start again onto that question, I have a few beliefs. Now coming on to purely organizational leadership, a person who joins in as a leader, there's always a time frame within which you have to reflect the impact of your leadership. You don't have an open time frame for that matter. So it's roughly around, according to me, 2 to 3 years when you create an impact. And that is the time to transform, to change, and to leave a long-lasting impact or a legacy to where you have been playing your role.
Okay.
And now, when you are doing these, you are certainly going to take those decisions which would have an impact on organizations. And to give you a live example about how the organizations have got impacted through my decision-making process. At Bridgestone India, I took to lead, having been offered, I took to lead the IT function at a very crucial point in time. That was just before the pandemic broke down.
Okay.
And the pace at which I managed to handle and transform to lead the change through the pandemic was unbelievable. Not being an IT profession by profession.
That's what I want to check. Yeah.
Right. What I believe that leadership do not need any particular functional roles to play. Leadership needs ability to decide. Leadership needs ability to look forward. Leadership needs something to collaborate and learn. And I think as you understand the real aspect of leadership, you can play any roles. It is not necessarily that a chartered accountant has to be a CFO or a technical person has to lead manufacturing. It's about leadership. It's about general management skills. Yeah. And throughout the, I can tell you, keeping focus on technology, governance, more so on security and serviceability. All these factors have been imbibed into the organizational culture, not only to handle a pandemic, but to lay a roadmap for future 3 years. So today, I would say Bridgestone is ready, prepared to take on the huge technological changes that are happening in organizations. The digital world, we are prepared with the infrastructure, with the understanding across the organization that the world is changing. And this will have a major impact, not only at this time when you didn't feel the disruption, but in years to come, that you'll be able to transform much more faster and easier.
So you have a dual role, but without, on one side, as a CFO, you have a strong domain knowledge because you are a chartered accountant. On the other side is IT, but you said no, you don't need. But IT being very prevalent, ubiquitous, and this is going to be a backbone for any organization. Without domain knowledge, how did you manage? That means your role as a leader is rigid, flexible, or hybrid, or how do you define that?
Sure. See, I'm blessed to be a finance professional because at the helm of finance position, you get to know everything and anything because you're signing all the contracts. When you sign them, you try to get deeper into understanding what you're signing, be it technology, machines, and so forth. So you are blessed in a way, or you are much more aware than many others about why, how much it is going to cost. The second part of your question, that is my leadership style, flexible, hybrid. Now you see, I wear the hat of finance, the CFO, which is more tilted towards governance, compliance, ensuring the security of the boards, the organization on financials, etc. And it does need certain level of rigidity. So I play that role. But if you ask me in my leadership role, I think I play a hybrid role. I have a much broader vision, a strategy, which will enable me to smartly maneuver through my organizational financial goal, the hat that I wore. So there's no standard way of saying whether I'm a rigid or a flexible leader, but you keep on changing as the situation arises.
So it's need-based.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, but in your organization, how is it empowering women? How is it? What is the process?
That's a very interesting question. Empowering women, and if we look at what does empowerment mean, to me, it's simple. It's a process of becoming stronger and more confident, especially in controlling one's own life and changing others' lives.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
By that definition, does anyone, a lady or a man, need to be empowered? So that's my basic understanding about getting empowered. So to me, empowerment is to be able to take it, not get it from someone. You have to empower yourself. And what does that mean? It means taking authority, responsibility, taking the risk to resolve. And thus, it's about gaining rather than getting empowerment. Do you have enough empowerment in organizations? Let me tell you, no one is going to give authority easily. You have to step up. Okay. You have to increase your ability to maneuver through and get your own empowerment. So whether it be, and I don't taint empowerment, whether it should be gender biased. Empowerment is universal because at any position, it's very difficult to give away. No one likes to give power. No one likes to give authority, be it to a male or a female. And that's why I would say that it's gender agnostic. It's more about building your abilities to gain empowerment. As a senior leader, I have a different version. This is what I talked about growing. But as a senior leader, I think organizations from the top, when they become lighter on controlling by authority, there would be much more effectiveness in driving growth of the organization because you move the day-to-day decision-making or certain decision-making to the ground level. You're building up a stronger decision-making ability. You're adding on a lot of views and versions to your decision-making through generations because we learn and we believe what we do is the best. But I think the newer generations come with much more diverse thought process. So the more you delegate the decision-making, the more you empower the organizations at bottom level, the stronger will be the leadership team. So it's both ways.
But looks like it is not happening across organizations. No, what is actually, what is the impediment?
See, as I mentioned, for anyone, even in our day-to-day lives, to give empowerment, to give authority, it needs I would say, a big heart. It needs an understanding of the gains behind it. It needs to understand what I am going to gain by empowering others.
Okay.
Today in organizations, we are so much stuck in functional silos. We are so much insecure, and particularly with reference to our country, I think there is 1:many positions for a role. There is fierce competition of losing jobs. And what we try to do is we try to secure ourselves by holding on to authorities, positions, powers. And that is one of the impediments. When it comes to empowering women, yes, I can say a little bit differently. It's a general belief which has grown through generations that women are not capable to be empowered. And that is one of the impediment which comes for specifically empowering women. So it is a change which has to go through overall in the culture, the thought process from the leadership levels.
Great. How do you strike a balance between work and life? That's a bit tough for anybody in the role like you have.
Right. I would say beyond really striking a balance between work and family, it's more about striking a balance between relationships which matter, both at work and family. And then rest is okay, So I think one has to walk that extra mile to strike that balance between relationships. And there will always be imbalance. I would never see a steady state of balance between work and life for every relationship. There is going to be an up and down in every relationship. What is more important is a simple act of adopting the practice of involving, delegating, forgiving and forgetting, caring, helping. These are the basic virtues which help to drive the balance both at workplace and at family. And if I were to say, frankly speaking, each one of us have walked our journey of imbalance to balance and balance to imbalance. And what we learn to do is to maintain an equilibrium. There cannot be a. So lucky are the ones who say that they have been able to perfectly balance their work and their life. I think that situation is momentary, temporary. It's never a permanent situation.
Okay, great. Lastly, what is your own vision for the mobility of the future? Do you see women, a lot of women coming into the mobility ecosystem?
Yes, pretty much. You see, mobility, and if mobility does not restrict itself to the automobile industry. I guess the way the mobility industry is undergoing a change, maybe because of the disruptive technologies, the electrification, the more care for environment, the connected and autonomous world that we are living in, or looking at mobility as a service. I think a lot more is changing around mobility. And if you look at women, what are the core strengths of women? Women come gifted with an ability to multitask, do what comes their way. They have the ability to think differently. And this is the time which is really very good period because you have to think differently. You cannot go in the stereotype way of thinking. And getting in diversity into mobility will really help to drive the shift from the old to the future at a faster pace, because you're using, I would say, the second half of the brain, which is not utilized by organizations. And that is what I feel about mobility. And mobility, as I said, relates to industries like travel and tourism. It could be banking, it could be insurance, it could be healthcare, and it could be the automobile industry. So all these sectors should certainly look at the future and look at the untapped brain power of this world or of this country to really get different thoughts and accept them openly. It's not just about numbers that I say. I think diversity is not about numbers. Diversity is about inclusion more than numbers. And if we are willing to really open our hearts to get acceptance to this particular fact, we should certainly be seeing mobility moving at much faster pace in our country.
Wow. Jyotsna, it was wonderful catching up with you. Thank you so much for your time talking to Mobility Outlook, and thank you so much for being part of Women in Mobility. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Murli. It was nice having this discussion on a Sunday noontime,
Thank you. Take care. Bye.